It's a jam-packed weekend here at Sonoma with 3 series sharing the track over the next 3 days. And to start it all off, we begin with qualifying for the Porsche Sprint Challenge North American Cayman Series. I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is Roush Racing driver Joey Atterbury. Joey, it is a busy lap around here, which will be fitting with the busy schedule we've got.
Absolutely. You know, Sonoma is one of these racetracks that you really have got to be on top of every single corner out here. We were at Sebring to start off the year, and then the West Series was out at Spring Mountain a couple weeks ago. But like you said, we've got all of the series right here in wine country in Sonoma.
And cars already on the track to try and put some laps down here. Qualifying probably going to be relatively important here at Sonoma. So drivers will want to try to get their best out of it. And this Cayman Series, we'll see 2 classes, if you're not familiar, as we will have the Pro-Ams and the Masters all sharing the track at the same time. They're in the same cars as well, so there's no difference between those 2 classes other than driver rating. The other thing that's nice is we're here in the spring, Joey, so it's got nice, beautiful greenery.
I was just about to make a comment on that. Yeah, it's beautiful green. Sonoma is, we're out here at the beginning of April, so the grass is still all alive out here. The wine country is in full effect, if you will. The vineyards are out in the distance out here. We got beautiful Porsches on the racetrack, and yeah, qualifying getting underway.
They get 25 minutes to set their best time. We'll see whether or not we'll get any surprises out of this. And we have a bit of an interesting layout for the track as well, because they have the chicane at the end of the lap, but they do have the full hairpin, so it's not like if you're used to seeing when IndyCar used to race here, where they have truncated that hairpin. It's the full all the way to where NASCAR runs around turn 11. This is down to the chicane that we can see right now. Perhaps one of the better places to try and make a pass, but also going to be an important part of this lap, trying to get the car woed up, Joey.
Definitely, and speaking of that chicane that we were just looking at, you know, that second curb, they call it the left-hander. It is a very, very wide curve, but on half of it's got the alligator strips. On the other half of it's nice and smooth. So I think we're going to see drivers kind of call it tempting fate over there in that section of the racetrack. How much of the curve can you get away with?
Exactly, and no doubt race control is going to be watching that, making sure you don't take too much off of that inside throughout the weekend. We're just getting some of our first times on the board. Now remember, with them all being in the same car, you will see those Masters and those Pro-Am drivers kind of intermingled, and they won't separate them at the start of the race. If you're wondering which is which, the yellow boxes on the numbers, and that is also on the cars, is your Masters category, and then the white ones are your Pro-Am. So right now, Scalzo, our provisional pole sitter, is overall pole here between the 2 classes, and by about just under 2/10, it looks like, over Jens Hansen, who just jumps up to P2.
I think one of the neat parts about having all of the run groups out there, we've had so much, call it data, to kind of rely off of, and the way the lap times are shaping up right now, Scalzo, a 142.65, that's what leads the way, and we've seen the Caymans as fast as a 140 and even a 139, a high 139 in some of the other run groups. So I think that there's still a little bit more speed left on the table for these drivers, and really, it's only the opening lap that they've put down. Drivers' brains, as well as the cars, still getting up to temperature.
That's a good point, and it's pretty familiar faces compared to what we saw at the first round back at Sebring, as the only new driver that we've got, I believe, is Dzelski out there in the number 77, but comes in with some experience in these Caymans and GT4 racing, so this won't be too great of a leap for him.
Yeah, since you had mentioned Danny there, might as well talk about him with the number 77, and he was just out here this previous weekend with the SRO group, so he's got a lot of recent track time. Now, last weekend, the weather was completely different than the beautiful California weather we've got out here this weekend, so the driver does have to kind of manage that, but remember, it's the same lefts and rights.
This is Anna Checki that we see on screen right now, and looking at the timing tower, I don't think she's going to be happy seeing her dad, Greg, actually quicker than her right now. So it's she was very close in the practice session. I was noting that. It seemed like he had gained a lot of pace since we last saw them in Florida. So it looks like he's been taking some notes, and not even just since the last round, but since the last practice session, he is quick today.
So this is coming down through the carousel, turn 6, call it turn 6A at the bottom there, and really stand on the gas in this Cayman GT4 to go down the back straightaway. This is another good passing opportunity once we come into race time down here at the end of that drag strip, turn number 7. And just like you were saying, Joe, this is the longer, the full NASCAR version of that hairpin down there at turn number 7. You go all the way out to the end, and then we take the shorter version through the S's. So we begin the S's. There's turn 8. Here's turn 8A. But now we go flat out all the way to this chicane that we were talking about.
Timing and scoring showing Dzelski now up on the provisional pole for the Pro-Am category. So he is picked up where he left off in that last practice session, where we noticed that he was pretty darn fast compared to a lot of those around him. In fact, quicker than Hansen, who was our winner last time out in the Caymans and seemed to be the guy to beat. But Checky is certainly going to try and keep him honest. But it was Lonnie Unser who was trying to chase him before, and she seems to be struggling a little bit at this track. She's still down in 4th in class right now and 6th overall.
So let's see what that 17 here. I think it might be the 27 on timing and scoring. Because oh, you know what? That's my mistake. Yeah, it is the 72 of Greg Checky in the yellow car that we're watching out here, and Anna's in the blue livery car.
Apologies, yeah.
So no, I got them mixed up a little bit as well. The cars are painted identical in terms of livery. It's just the color that identifies them. And looks like this is the top of the board. This is Danny out here. He had just set fastest lap of 142.3 inside this number 77.
Indeed. Scalzo brings it into pit lane. He's still our fastest among the Masters. 77 now down to 42.3, about a quarter of a second quicker than Alon. Well, Jens Hansen tries to play catch up. He's got about half a second to get up to Danny at the top. And it doesn't look like this is a hot lap right here, taking his time coming down the hill. In the meantime, as we watch down into the braking of the hairpin, this is also a much wider version of this hairpin. You can see they've got a bit of a stretch before they get around and then come back down into the S's.
It's an interesting one to drive because you're hard on the brakes going in at the end of the drag strip, and then you actually have to give it a little bit of a squirt of gas in that hairpin there to kind of reach 7A, and then you're on the brakes again. So lots going on inside that cockpit for the drivers to manage out there, and then a little bit off the apex there. And what is turn 9, that entry right-hander into that chicane. So I'm sure that they're going to be looking for something, and I think we actually might have a yellow flag somewhere on the racetrack, at least on my timing and scoring. Start-finish still shows waving green, but looks like there's a car stalled out there before turn 11.
Yeah, not sure who that is currently. Says car 15, actually. So that is going to be Bill Fennick, who seems to have had some sort of technical problem with the car. But thankfully, he is kind of out of harm's way right now, so they're allowing them to race on, at least for the time being. But we'll see if that changes. There he is there. That does seem pretty well out of the firing line, Joey.
It is. I think that the car is in a safe area. It's just up to... basically, if it's going to be safe enough for everybody to go through without being distracted. Remember, you don't want any distractions out there, and sometimes you just got to get cars out of the way. But you're right, I do think it's in a safe area, non-impact area.
Yeah, I think they're sending a truck or two out to him, so maybe they'll be able to bring that in without having to interrupt this. It's not a very long session at only 25 minutes, but...
well, I'm going to jump in here, and it's a little bit frustrating for Fennick, too, because he's currently sitting 3rd in that Cayman Masters class, so, he's probably frustrated as well.
Watching the 88 of Schaefer for a couple laps here. He's currently 6th in his class in the Masters, but 11th overall. Has some work to do. Has about 4.5 seconds to make up to our pole sitter. As I have to imagine these cars, a little bit more momentum-based since they don't really have the downforce on them that we see in some faster machinery. A track like this, there could be many places where you lose time.
Yes, and a lot of these corners, they feed one after another. So oftentimes if you're on the back foot for one corner, it can kind of lead into the next sector, which really can kind of trash your lap time.
Speaking of trashing lap times, unfortunately, our drivers are having to take a pause now as they have brought out the red flag. They don't want to leave that car out there. So should be a relatively easy clearing of this. We might be able to get a few more laps in and get them back out on the track. So sad to see it interrupted, but at least it doesn't seem to be anything major, any sort of damage that we can tell on the car. Now, we also are very excited this weekend because this is another one of the weekends where we have the Porsche GT track days as well, and there's going to be some very happy drivers after this weekend. Essentially, Joey, they get to take out some of their track day cars and get to kind of experience what a lot of these race car drivers are doing.
It's a pretty cool, call it motorsport experience, right? You're not out here at an HPDE. It's not a driving event. It really, truly is a racing event. Everybody is out here in their Cayman GT4s or their GT3 Cup cars. And then, like you said, there's also the GT Track Day where you can kind of get a little bit of a taste of that in a motorsports environment with your track day car. It doesn't have to be one of these race cars. So, yeah, not just the cool stuff going out around. We got the street cars out here too this weekend.
Well, and if they want to learn how to go quicker too, the very cool thing is that they do ride-alongs as part of this. They did that over at Spring Mountain with Ashley Freiberg. I believe we've heard that might be Riley Dickinson, Carrera Cup driver, taking them around here in Sonoma. It seemed to be very, very popular. Drivers having a good time getting to see just how quickly these race car drivers wheel around this place.
What surprises a lot of people when they get in the right seat with a truly trained professional driver is the entry speed. People are not prepared for how fast these cars, even street cars, can go around a racetrack. I think if you don't like roller coasters, don't get in the right seat.
That's true. Well, it works out great for me because the only thing I don't like about roller coasters is the drop. So
well, we got elevation up here in turn 1,
this
too.
This is true. Yeah. Well, and you know, I do love getting to go to these tracks and really get to see, you know, a lot of the things that don't come across on TV screens or in simulators and whatnot. I walked up to turn 2, and I wasn't even to the top of the hill. I was just to the bridge that crosses there to go kind of watch some of the practices. It is steep. That is a huge hill up to there.
It is a very steep elevation change from, call it start-finish, all the way up to the apex of turn number 2. But that's not the only elevation we've got here at Sonoma. The immediate next set of corners is another very steep incline, and it really is almost like a medium-speed chicane, talking about turn 3 and 3A up at the top of the hill there, and it's even more unsighted. So with all of this elevation, yeah, it's tons of fun to drive, but think about it from a driver's perspective. You're unsighted for some of these apexes. You don't get to see the track on exit as you come up and over these crests. So elevation fun, but it's also a challenge.
Yeah, there you can see it right there on the right side of your screen right now. That's the exit of 3A down into 4 and into 5. Big drop before it has a little bit of a rise, and then it's downhill once again through turn 6, which you can't quite see from this angle, but definitely one of the more iconic corners here at Sonoma Raceway through the carousel. Definitely one that will test drivers, no doubt, as we see them now lined up in pit lane waiting patiently for the track to be cleared. Still 10 minutes left, so there's plenty of time. And I can see at least one truck over there, but I don't see if they have the car out of the way yet.
You know, and I saw that they brought the flatbed out to pick up the car, and it looks like the car is actually up on the tow truck, up on the flatbed right now. But that usually tells me that the car doesn't want to roll, because usually you can kind of flat tow it into pit lane, just given the location, right? It's right there at pit entry. But I think it's a little bit more of a mechanical problem, if I was to guess.
Yeah, it does seem to imply that. Now, here's where this gets significant. One of the rules that they have adapted this year is that if you cause a red flag during qualifying, you will lose the 2 fastest laps. Now, why it's the 2 fastest laps is because they use your 2 fastest laps for the 2 races. The first one for the first race and the second fastest lap for the second race of the weekend. So if you've got more than those 2 laps, you still have something to fall back on. But unless it's later in the session, it can sometimes mean that basically you're starting from the back.
And we've got a green flag back out there on the racetrack, so the engines have fired to life. All of the drivers on that pit lane speed limiter till they get to the cones on the end of pit lane here. And then getting back out there for 8 minutes and 50 seconds remaining here in qualifying. That's going to be a tough one, right? There's all of the drivers that have put a lap time down, but maybe not necessarily what they want to, and now they're on a very limited timetable to go out there and perform.
It's curious as I'm looking down from our window into pit lane, and I can see Scalzo and Hansen are still stationary, so they don't look like they're in a hurry to get back out there. I'm not sure if we'll see them returning. Both of them are in pretty good position, second and third overall. Dzelski is back out on course. He's still on the provisional pole, still by about a quarter of a second over Scalzo. So he's sitting pretty good right now. Probably won't be threatened unless we get someone such as the two Czechis or Unser be able to find a lot of time. And honestly, I'm still showing both Greg and Anna Cecchi in pit lane as well on our time and scoring.
The other thing to think about is that if the driver was able to go out there and perform qualifying laps and they're happy with that performance, it might be the case that the team says, all right, the track is doing nothing but getting warmer, right? We're starting to get into the afternoon here in Sonoma, so ambient temperatures going up, track temperatures going up, so things aren't necessarily going in your favor to go faster. And if the driver says, hey, that's a good lap, sometimes the team has just got to trust it. And then there's the other fact, save the tires for the race.
Yeah, exactly. No, I do believe they are limited to a tire set specifically for qualifying, so I don't think they would put on a new set and send them out. I think they have to use just the one for this qualifying session. Same thing for the race. Since there are no scheduled pit stops, they get a set for each race that they are supposed to use. And big shout out to, of course, all the folks at Yokohama that helped make this happen. We've talked extensively both with them and about them and how they have to bring a whole bunch of tires every weekend, and especially here this weekend, because as we said, we have 3 different series running at the same time, and in some cases, such as the North America Series, that has 2 series within itself that are also racing, because these are the Cayman cars. We'll have the GT3 Cup cars for the North America Series coming out in just a moment for qualifying. So, yeah, it looks okay. So there's the two Czechis coming back out. Greg and Anna have both returned to the track. We're going to try and set a time here in these final few minutes. So now we get to watch the sectors and see who is going to be on a flyer in what is probably about 2 or 3 more hard laps left in them.
Riding on board here with the number 30. This is Spencer Proper as he starts to go down from the tallest section, the highest section out here in Sonoma. Now this is what is turn 4, still going downhill here through the nice bending turn 5. It's really kind of a non-corner once everything's warmed up, but this gets tricky right here, up over the crest and then dive it down into turn 6, the carousel, whatever you want to call it, and then you want to get on the gas as early as you possibly can because it leads you out onto this right here, the drag strip.
You know, one of the things we've been seeing a lot of in the practice sessions up till now, too, and especially when we did our track walk a little bit earlier, is the exits of a lot of these corners. The drivers have worn out a lot of those areas. It's a lot of dirt instead of grass on the exits of many of them past the curbs. And it's actually caused a drop-off on the exit of the curb. I wonder if that's contributed to some of the spins that we've been seeing drivers had if they push a little bit too far.
I think so. And, you know, if it hasn't here in practice, it can definitely be an issue once it comes race time. Got to remember, they're not necessarily passing door to door in practice and qualifying in aggression in the heat of the moment, right? It's a little bit more cooperated during those times. But yeah, you always have to pay attention to track limits. And you're right, a lot of call it the exit curbs, right? The alligator curbs on the outside of those track corner exits. They can kind of have that little bit of a drop-off between the curb and the actual dirt. It's never good for the tires. You never want to be out there as a driver, but sometimes when you come up and over some of these crests, you just find yourself with 2 wheels out there in the dirt and just makes those ruts even bigger.
Watch it proper carry on here and hasn't really had the best of laps, so not seeing much improvement on that front. Looks like Dzelski has brought it into pit lane. So Greg and Anna Cecchi are the highest up right now. That could maybe change the order towards the front of the field, but I'm also not seeing any green sectors from them. I think that kind of hints at what you touched on earlier, Joey, that the track is just not sped up towards the end of this session.
And I mean, earlier in the day, our provisional pole sitter car did a 139. So, and he's sitting at a 142.3, and he's in the pits right now. So that screams to me, yeah, that's kind of what the performance window is, at least given the temperatures. It's 75 degrees ambient right here in Sonoma, but you take into fact a 40°C track temperature. It's 105 degrees on the track, so it is starting to get warm.
Yeah, it's a decently warm track. It's a sunny day, so the sun has been pounding down on the pavement and continuing to just bake in that heat here. So 3 minutes left to go on the clock. Is Proper going to have any improvement? Again, not seeing much in the way of that. First sector looks pretty decent for him as we check out the 51, while Anichecki on a good start to this lap.
Yeah, we're watching one of the 51 car come up and over turn 3B, dive down into turn 4 right here. But I know that you were just mentioning the Checkies, and remember, they were kind of late to roll out of pit lane once the green flag got going again. We made that comment, but that just means they're kind of half a lap behind everybody in terms of that warm-up procedure. And Anichecki was purple Sector 1 for her class, and then she just set her personal best Sector 2. She's on a heater.
All right, and she has been pushed down by Lonnie Unser. Lonnie goes up to 5th overall, 3rd in class with one of her recent laps, and is not going to let that stand, no doubt, and try and see if she can move back ahead of Lonnie. 2 minutes left, so time is starting to run out, while the 51 of Bufkin, who currently sits 6th in the Masters class, comes down to the braking of the chicane. A little bit off the first apex, nice and tidy off the second apex, and then off he goes towards the hairpin to try and wrap up what is really the last actual corner.
And speaking of Bufkin, he set his personal best Sector 1 on this lap right here, the number 51 car. So, well, he's got to kind of keep it together through turn number 11, go all the way out, drivers left to that wall, make sure you stay on the gas, and kind of see what lap time here this number 51 is going to do. It actually jumps him up the order, a 146.4, puts him 6th in class.
Also, Anna did improve. She's back into 3rd in class now, and has jumped Lonnie Unser once again. Both of them are still out on the track. Will we get more changes before this is over? Up off the top of 3A there for the 51 of Bufkin, and then plunging into turn 4, trying to find speed here through the middle of the lap as he weaves it around the hills of Northern California.
Doesn't look like much of an elevation change from that camera shot with the drone sitting pretty much at equal altitude, but this was the driver that we have just been talking about, Anichecki here in this white and blue number 27. Now, her previous lap, definitely her fastest of the session so far. I don't know if this one's going to be quite as fast, but I'm looking only 7/100ths of a second behind Greg.
And wonder what that's going to look like. Oh, as both of them are in, but Lonnie stays out, and Lonnie's got a personal best second sector. Let's see if this last sector is quicker. She could take it right back from Anichecki. It's about 2/10 difference between them. She'll come across the line, and it doesn't improve, so Lonnie will stay in that 4th in the Pro-Am, but it'll be 6th overall. Again, she was one of our quickest back in Sebring as the checkered flag is now out, so drivers able to complete the hot laps who are out there running.
And she was dang close to that best lap time. She put a 43.7 on the board, that very, very last timed lap out of Lonnie Unser, and her best is a 43.6. And I'm going through the entire order over here. I guess I shouldn't be surprised, right? At Sebring and at Spring Mountain, these classes were so tightly packed together. I got to search outside the top 5 in order to get a car that is more than 1 second back in first and second place, although they are 2 different classes, separated by only a 1/4 of a second.
Yeah, that dynamic will be interesting between all of them. Scalzo going to try and keep up the pace that he found in race 2 a little bit before, and Schaefer came across the line, Proper did, Rizzo, but everybody else looks like they decided not to try and complete this final lap. Actually, no, I spoke too soon. I do still see Lonnie coming through the last chicane. And it looks like Hoffman also is kind of following her. So we'll see if they decide to stay out and if that can change anything. Lonnie's second sector, once again, improvement there, if I'm seeing correctly.
Yeah, shows personal best second sector for Lonnie Unser in that number 4 car. See if she can make up a little bit of time. I'm not sure if she dove down into pit lane. No, here she comes across start finish right here. So let's see what that lap time, 43.68. So still not going to improve, but when we look at the data going into the race, I mean, we just watched 3 laps that were all within a quarter of a second. I'd call that consistency.
I'd say so. And that could pay big dividends around here. So looks like our grid is set. This is the provisional results, of course, for the Cayman class in the North America Series. As Dzelski is going to be your pole sitter, and then the pole sitter behind him, Scalzo for the Masters. Not much separating that front row. Hansen starts from 3rd overall with Greg Checky starting in 4th. Then 5th is Anna Checky. Lonnie Unser in P6. Bill Finnick in 7th. Hoffman starts in 8th and Kopczynski in 9th. Dan Ammon, P10 for him with Bufkin in 11th. Schaefer 12th. Proper in 13th. And then Bonderson P14. Tartaglione in 15th. And Rizzo rounding out our 16 cars. We've got more to come later today as the North America GT3 Cup Series will be up next for qualifying. Don't go away.